Let's get to the big three.
Number 3.
This was a smackdown to a rogue left-wing, low-level district court judge who have relentlessly tried to stop President Trump from using his core constitutional powers.
There you go. That is Caroline Leavitt. A judge fair has delivered the multiple wins for President Trump as wild-eyed partisan district judges get slapped back by the Supreme Court. There's another case front and center. We will discuss it.
Number 2.
We have to thread a needle in order to get this done, but we have to have maximum cooperation and support from every Senate Republican, every House Republican. The stakes are too high.
No doubt about it. That is Majority Leader Senator Thune. Big, beautiful bill leaves the Senate for the House, and there are many bridges that need to be made and cuts that need to happen. We will discuss the stakes and the hindrances.
Number 1.
This is the largest transaction in the history of our country. And don't let some of these politicians go around saying, because I'm telling you, these countries are calling us up.
And that's the president last night in a tuxedo talking about the trade deals that could be coming. Tariff stare down, countdown to deals with dozens of nations while the focus on China moves front and center. The question, when do the deals come and how will when the markets will rise again? Those are the two big questions. So what am I talking about? Essentially, within our show on Fox and Friends today, which I just left coming up here to do radio, the U.S. has now, the Chinese have put their tariffs up to 84%. So we were at 104%. And if I am correct, we might want to double check this. I believe that we have answered and we have put it up to 200% for the Chinese. This is a stare down. This is personal. It's everything that money should not be involved in. You can't get emotional about it. But we are tired of what's happening with the tariffs, with the VAT taxes over in Europe, with the tariffs taking place with the slave labor over in China, and yet trying to keep our economy afloat while $36 to $37 trillion in debt. So we want to rebalance everything, and we want to do it right away. The question when I go back to is when the deals come. And I'm not asking about theoretical deals. I'm talking about offers that'll come through. I mean, we have already, the Japanese leader is coming here. We already had the Prime Minister of Israel come here. We know that next week, Meloni of Italy is coming here. And the calls are fast and furious. And the deals could be coming right down the pike. And when they do come, this will reverse what is a big losses in the market. And so let's listen to Donald Trump last night when he talks about what the other countries have been saying to him. Cut to.
This is bigger than any deal. You guys, some of you work for companies. Your companies are peanuts. I don't care how big they are. Compared, this is the largest transaction in the history of our country. And don't let some of these politicians go around saying, because I'm telling you, these countries are calling us up, kissing my ass. They are dying to make a deal. Please, sir, make a deal. I'll do anything. I'll do anything, sir.
So that was President Trump last night in a tux at a big event for Republicans trying to rally support for the big, beautiful deal. But we're talking about a number of countries that matter. For example, believe it or not, when people started hearing about Vietnam and smaller countries like Thailand and Indonesia, they thought, well, what's Cambodia? What's the big deal? It is a huge deal with textiles and with manufacturing. And guess what else? Even the New York Times pointed this out. This could be great news for the Philippines, who are basically in a low-impact war with China right now. They see a huge opportunity to take a lot of that manufacturing back, and I'd zero out those tariffs. So let's bring in Julie Banderas is here. Julie, high stakes moment now. A lot of people that you know, especially in the town you live in, very invested in the market. A lot of people looking for rebalancing trade. This is poker, isn't it?
It is poker, but he's got the hand. He's got the hand with all the power, and that's what Trump does. This deal, first of all, let's just talk about the tariffs. I know it's rough, and it's awful on investors. It's awful on our 401ks. It's awful on all our investments. But I do believe that he has to play hardball in order to reverse the course of history. Every president in this White House for decades have basically allowed other countries to rule us. We're supposed to be the most powerful nation in the world, and we're not. And by allowing countries like China and Canada, et cetera, to allow them to charge us tens and tens of percentages of taxes and us not fight back is ridiculous. Yeah, in the short term, it's going to cost us, but I think in the long term, he's making a huge difference. He's going to be putting money back where it belongs, which is in the pockets of U.S. taxpayers, putting money back where it belongs in the form of United States-grown businesses. Bring business back to the United States. Stop giving it. Why are we giving money to other countries? Why are we giving so much money to other countries when we need it first? And I love the fact that we're also going to be getting tax breaks eventually. I'm hoping that this big, beautiful deal does pass, although there are a lot of hurdles. But why wouldn't you want to cut government spending? A lot of the pushback that we're getting and hearing from Democrats just seems so hypocritical. I mean, they're all about cutbacks until the Republican makes the decision. And then, of course, they push back and say, no, we don't want cutbacks. Why would we want the government to trim fat? They're trimming the pork because that's what taxpayers deserve.
So Brooke Rollins is doing a lot of the negotiating too, and she's the Agricultural Secretary. Jamison Greer is our trade representative. He was on Capitol Hill just in the middle of all this. He was coming anyway. So just to review, we woke up today and found out that China has retaliated, and now we're up to total 104%. Mexico is at 25%. They have not done anything. Canada has retaliated. Everybody else is coming to the table: the EU, Japan, Vietnam, South Korea, and Taiwan. So yesterday, here's what Jamison Greer said about China, cut 8.
Unfortunately, China for many years seems to be choosing its own path on market access. Again, they have agency in this. They elected to announce retaliation. Other countries did not. Other countries signaled that they'd like to find a path forward on reciprocity. China has not said that. And we will see where that goes. I think we need to work with our closest friends to make sure that we have trading arrangements that work. And if the Chinese are open, we'll see what. But they haven't signaled that at all. So I don't think that's in the very near term with China.
So Jamison Greer was pretty calm under fire. What's going on? And essentially, we saw when there's even rumors of deals, the market goes up, Julie. So I know the president's going to get very tempted to start doing deals. It's going to leave China isolated as the one behemoth that doesn't want to come to the table, which is going to hurt some companies, no doubt about it.
Yeah. It's going to in the short term, but I honestly think he needs to look at the long term. And that's what I think past presidencies, past administrations have failed to do. They want to satisfy their voters right up ahead, right? They want to let American voters know that they're not going to cost taxpayers. But if they're going to have to do that and we hurt just a little bit for a little while, just imagine the long-term benefits in all of this. And China, first of all, has had the upper hand for years, and they're used to taking advantage of the United States. They're used to us being the weaker link. It's about time that a president stands up to China. And as far as China throwing out 100% tariff, how long do you think that's going to last? It's not going to last long, especially when the rest of the world starts to get in line with President Trump, then China will start feeling the pinch. I also love the fact that the president is going to impose tariffs on other countries that do business with countries like Venezuela, for example, or, for punishing them for not coming to the table. So I do believe that this kind of pressure is going to end up winning in the end.
I don't think Peter Navarro's been an asset. I find him, he's speaking for the White House when he shouldn't be speaking for the White House. I know he's in there, but he'll book himself on these shows and go out and say things that are contradictory from the Treasury Secretary. So I think you got to pull him back. One of the big critics, as usual, he's always been a problem and an egomaniac in my view, Senator Rand Paul. Listen to him with Larry Kudlow yesterday, cut 13.
There's a fundamental argument we have to have in this country: is trade good or bad? The president and his counselors seem to think that in trade someone gets ripped off. The truth of the matter is this, that all trade is mutually beneficial, and really the U.S. doesn't trade with China. You trade with Walmart. So when I go to Walmart, if I pay $10 for a shirt, I want that shirt and they want my $10, and we both go away from the deal having succeeded. We mutually benefited. That's the only reason trade happens. And then if you add it all up and say, oh, China's ripping us off, it makes no sense. Trade deficits are not real accounting.
So what I think that he is choosing not to say is, for example, if I have a shirt, I have to charge more for it because I don't have a Uyghur slave sewing it together.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and I don't have slave labor, people making $2 a month putting it together. So if we're going to compete with them, we have to rebalance it. So for the longest time, really since 90s, we have said, Yeah, let them make our stuff. Let them make our soccer balls. Let them make our cleats. Let them do it. And then we like the cheap labor. Every once in a while, people would say, hey, Michael Jordan, do you know who's making your stuff? And then there would be a little bit of controversy and everything would calm down. Now in 2025, we go, wait, we have no shirt makers. We have no shoe makers. We don't make anything right now. So how do we, what's the big deal? We all transition? No, we didn't transition. Go to the Midwest, within transition. So what are we going to do? Well, let's start altering it a little bit. Put some tariffs on steel. Shouldn't do tariffs. Well, they were so good that Joe Biden left them. And the aluminum, they left them. And then when it comes to rubber and tires, now we're starting to do so more at home. The question is, we're so intermingled now. When you say build American cars here, they go, okay, but I'm going to have to go overseas to get these parts.
Right.
And that battery. You know that, right?
No, of course.
So 85% of my car is built here, so you're going to tariff me getting batteries. So if you're going to tariff me getting a battery for my Stellantis or my GM car, I'm going to have to up the price because my margins are already small when it comes to automobiles.
Yeah, no, and that is how it's going to affect Americans. I mean, everyday Americans are going to, if these were to stay in long term, pay more because it's impossible to create all of this in the United States. We're always going to be importing, right? But for any politician to say that China's not ripping us off or that some of these countries have been ripping us off, that's BS.
Well, they're stealing our stuff. If you come in and have a company there, they take your IP, their intellectual property. We know that right now. Why we tolerated that, I don't know.
Well, that's the problem.
And then they're spying on our stuff.
Yeah, well, that's another great point.
That is flat out theft. So now it's got to be, that's one reason what I loved about the president's last tax reform. He took down the corporate tax. And everyone said, well, great, you give corporations a break. Slow down a second. It's not corporations getting a break. It's keeping corporations here because Ireland has got half the corporate rate as us.
We have the highest corporate rate in all of the world. Exactly. I mean, why wouldn't you want to cut the corporate tax? I can't understand why people are against cutting taxes, period. I just don't get that. It makes absolutely no sense.
Right. I mean, they're talking about revenue in the short term and they want to incentivize people to build long term. Listen, a few more minutes with Julie when we get back. And also, we have other great guests. You're listening to The Brian Kilmeade Show, 1-866-408-7669. Back in a moment.
I don't know what it's going to take for 78 million Americans to deal with what motivated them to make this choice. And the choice that they've made, we have to just be honest, is to literally throw the Republican to the trash bin. We chose a felon because we didn't want to elect a black woman.
Eddie Glaude, a Princeton professor who's always on MSNBC, but giving what he thinks should be regrets that people have of electing Donald Trump 70 plus days in. So your thoughts, Julie Banderas, about what Eddie said?
Okay, first of all, we didn't not elect a black woman. We didn't elect an idiot. That's what we didn't do. I mean, people chose not to elect somebody who is clearly not capable of running the office of the presidency, let alone the office of vice president. She actually was the most lame duck vice president ever. I mean, she did nothing. She did absolutely nothing. She had one job, illegal immigration, never even traveled to the border. And it took a journalist to actually get that out from her. So as far as why Vice President Kamala Harris is not our president today, it's because Americans are not stupid. At least they're not as stupid as she is.
Julie, do you think America would elect a woman?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think there'd be any hesitation if the candidate was strong? Do you think America's over that?
I still think just the optics of it. I think that, I think some people, it depends. I mean, it has to be a strong woman. And I mean, I'm not to say that there haven't been strong women who have considered the presidency. We have seen a few, but I just don't think it's been the right fit just yet.
Who do you think? Name a couple of women you think that should run for president, even on both sides, that maybe you would not vote for, but could have presidential timber, that you can think about that are out there that hold themselves in a way and have accomplished things?
That's a good question.
I'll give you one.
Who?
You have to ask me first.
Who? Brian, tell us what woman, aside from me, do you think would make a perfect president? Aside from me.
Elise Stefanik. She's too young now. I'd give her a few more years. I could absolutely see her running for president. I mean, I would have no problem. She actually knows leadership, knows how to mix it up, understands blue and understands red. She lives in a blue state, and she has in leadership with the Republicans. That's the type of person that I think America would elect. I don't care if a woman or a man. She's tough.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I can't really.
Nikki Haley. I would think Nikki Haley. I'm a fan of Nikki Haley, even though she's all mad at us now because I don't know why, but I think
I actually always thought that Nikki Haley was going to be a pick, at least for a VP candidate. I actually thought of a Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley ticket. That was one
before
of the,
Trump made it clear he's getting in.
Yeah. No, I actually seriously thought that Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley. So yes, I'm with you on the Nikki Haley thing. I don't like the fact that she's kind of turned a little bit, though. That was a bit of. I
don't know. She's got to get over it because it's not helping her.
No, if you turn against Trump, if you haven't noticed at this point, if you're a Republican and you turn against Trump, you're going to damage your political career.
And what you do, what she did, come out, speak when you can, and then wait for your turn because in a few years you'll have a chance to go fresh.
And nobody likes an angry woman, Brian. I'm just saying. Ask
You're
your
saying
wife.
that? Let me ask you this, Julie.
Yeah.
Do you think that people are more accepting of an angry guy than an angry woman?
I mean, I don't want to sound like a feminist because I'm not a feminist, but I definitely think that when Trump is on a debate stage and he slams his opponent, he's not going to be criticized as much as like a Nikki Haley or somebody like that who goes and cuts a man down.
Because?
They're going to think she's a, can I say the word?
Because men could say, oh, that's my relationship. That's the relationship I'm in. I don't need that in the White House.
Nobody, I don't know. People can't accept angry women. An aggressive man, fine. Angry woman, I can't say the word, but it starts with a B.
Even if her motivation is to make you a better person and make a country a better place, men just don't want angry. Speaking for men as a woman. You're speaking for men.
Listen, I think you can be aggressive, but not be rude, right? That's my personality. I'm not rude. I'm not disrespectful, but when I'm in an argument or if I'm debating somebody.
You go for the win.
I go for the jugular
and
I go
that
for the
turns
win.
Men off?
Not if you do it gracefully and you do it a little tactically and you throw in a little bit of humor.
You don't go for the knockout.
But no, you can't go for like the full-blown knockout because then somebody's going to think you're crazy.
Or you emasculate the person and he doesn't become a man in the relationship. You become the man in the relationship. And then
are we talking about my ex-husband now, or what are we talking about?
We just talk. I don't know how we're. I don't think I'm going into any biography.
I know all about emasculation. I can talk about that for hours.
Because you don't want, like, if you have a strong man and you beat him down.
Right.
What good is it? Then when you have a shell of a man.
That's why we're still friends, because I haven't beat you down
yet. And it's a choice.
That is a choice.
So you could knock me out.
I absolutely could, Brian. But I sit here and I look at you and I think you're so smart and handsome.
Keep going. Oh, damn. We're on a break. So let's bring in Karl right now. Karl, your thoughts about what the president's move should be now to this point. For me, I'd like to see him start to announce some deals. What about you?
Absolutely. In fact, I think he sort of suggested that on Monday. He said many countries are coming to negotiate deals. And then his Treasury Secretary echoed him on Tuesday, saying some very large countries, quote, could, quote, come to the table with solid proposals. So if they want to calm the markets, then by all means, they need to get into these discussions to mutually cut tariffs and also remove non-tariff barriers to the importation of American goods and services.
I want you to hear Jameson Greer yesterday. I never remember so much focus on a U.S. trade representative, but he happened to be on Capitol Hill amidst all this turmoil. Cut 9.
The same economists who are crying out now were the ones who said we were going to crash the economy in Trump 1. We put tariffs on China, and real median household income went up for Americans by $7,000. Senator, we're not going to be in a situation where we keep allowing Wall Street to run the economy.
So your thought, I thought he handled himself really well yesterday.
I thought so too, but let's be honest. The reason that real incomes rose were three factors. One is the Trump tax cuts, which allowed people to put more money in their pockets and were pro-growth. That is to say, they did things like encourage economic growth. It encouraged companies to expand, to innovate, to hire more people, to build new plants. Second of all, Trump had a very successful effort to remove the regulatory burden placed on the American economy by his predecessor, Barack Obama. During the course of the 8 years of Obama, $870 billion worth of government regulations were placed on the economy. Those are the numbers figured out by the people who applied the rules. When you have a new rule or regulation at the federal level, you have to go through a cost-benefit analysis. You have to negotiate that with the OMB, and that number is published in the Federal Registry when you publish that regulation. And President Trump went in and undid a lot of those. In fact, the entire regulatory burden over a 4-year period under President Trump increased a net of just over $80 billion, a blimp an economy that's, $20 trillion a year. And the reason was because he did a lot of what President Obama had done. He's got a bigger target this time around. In just 4 years, President Biden put $1.9 trillion of new costs onto our economy, including with one regulation alone, as much as Barack Obama did in 8 years with all of his regulations. So that was another reason last time around that things went well. Trump has an even bigger target this time around. And finally, he placed a tariff on China, but he also had trade deals with two of our biggest trading partners, Mexico and Canada, which helped normalize trade between those two countries. So he's got the ability to pass the tax cut, to renew that. He's got a bigger target on regulatory relief. Now he's got to match it with what he did last time around with Mexico and Canada and do it with a bunch more countries.
I just got to tell you this. The European Union has just approved its own retaliation for U.S. steel and aluminum, adding to fears of a global recession. Trump's latest tariffs hit nearly all U.S. trading partners. It looks like the only retaliatory actions were Canada and China, but now I guess we can include the European Union in that?
Well, let's see what the details are on it. I mean, it may be symbolic or it may be problematic. My sense is it's likely to be more symbolic than problematic because the Europeans understand if they add to the clamor for a trade war, they're going to be hurt badly.
I understand. And plus, they already came in and said, what about zeroing out the tariffs on both countries? And the president's informal response was, but what about beef? And what about your VAT tax? And what about getting us access to the market with American cars?
Yeah, look, two out of those three are good. They need to remove the non-tariff barriers to the importation of American cars. They need to do something to allow our ag products in. VAT tax, though, that ought not to be part of the equation. That's their national sales tax. How would we like it if a trading partner said, well, you need to get rid of your income tax, or you need to replace your patchwork of state and local sales taxes with one national sales tax? That is a sales tax that has nothing to do with trade. It may make those economies less productive. It may make them less competitive, but it does not affect us directly as sales taxes in the United States don't affect our trading partners directly.
Real quick, Mick Mulvaney weighed in on CNBC yesterday about the battle between Navarro and Musk. And here's what he said, cut 16.
Does Peter Navarro, who went to prison for the president, does he need to be fired?
I would have fired him a long time. I would have fired him when he got caught making up his academic sources for his papers with his Ron Vara imaginary friend. But, I mean, that was Donald Trump's call then. It's Donald Trump's call now. I think folks watching this show are caring more about what is the policy of the White House? What is the policy on tariffs? What does the future hold on this? And Peter Navarro is not a reliable source for information about that.
You have good hooks into the administration. Is he a problem?
Yeah, he is. Look, think about it. He went on the shows on Sunday, and he was asked the question about, are we setting up negotiations and deal making? He said, this is not a negotiation. We're not negotiating. And on Monday, the president says we've got a lot of countries coming our way with wonderful deals to make. And the Treasury Secretary said the same thing. Navarro is the guy who came up with this incredibly bizarre scheme in which we put tariffs on countries with whom we have a surplus. Now, if countries that have a surplus with us, the president and the administration are saying are ripping us off. We have with Great Britain, with the Netherlands, if you include services, a larger number of countries. And Navarro is one of the guys who came up with the idea of let's tax them with a tariff, even though we're already running a surplus. What is that kind of thing? And he came up with this cockamamie scheme that ends up putting the highest increases in tariffs on essentially poor countries, because those poor countries are not in a position to look, Cambodia doesn't have a lot of money with which to buy things from America, but now we're going to put a 49% increase or 44% increase in tariffs on them because they don't buy as much as we want them to buy. They're a poor country. Until they get richer, they're not going to be buying a lot of American goods.
Karl Rove, yesterday Ken Paxton made it official on Laura Ingraham's show. He's going to run against Senator John Cornyn for the Republican nomination for 6 more years representing Texas. Your thoughts about this?
Well, I'm a personal friend of John Cornyn's, and I think Ken Paxton could be the first Republican with a dubious honor if he were to be the Republican nominee, and that is to be the first Republican since 1994 to lose a statewide race. Here is a guy who has admitted, who signed a legal document affirming that all of the charges by the whistleblowers against him were true, which is he had an affair with a staffer for one of his wife's colleagues. His wife is a state senator. He then had that girl, that woman, hired by a corrupt real estate guy who's going to jail. He did favors using the powers of his office to benefit that corrupt real estate investor, namely, for example, trying to close down courthouse staff auctions during COVID, at which they were going to take foreclosed properties of the corrupt real estate guy and auction them off. And the corrupt real estate guy repaid him by paying for supervising $200,000 worth of improvements to his house and establishing a fake Uber account in Ken Paxton with a phony name for Ken Paxton so he could get an Uber to take him to his girlfriend's house for God knows what. Without being known. And it turns out the contractor who did the $200,000 worth of work never got paid. So this is the kind of guy that some people think ought to be the Republican candidate for U.S. Senate. The Democrats will have a field day with him. We will have television ads with his fake name for his Uber account. They'll tout up how many times he took the fake Uber rides in order to have sex with his girlfriend. The $200,000, the contractor will be on television talking about, I did the work. I reported to the corrupt real estate guy for Ken Paxton, and I never got paid. I mean, this is a disaster. And what this guy thinks he's doing by offering himself up is a sign of the ego of this guy.
Besides that, do you know who you're going to vote for?
I'm voting for John Cornyn, baby. I voted Republican whip. Very successful, was the whip during Trump's first term and helped guide the Trump packages, tax cuts, and other agenda items to passage in the United States Senate.
I tell you, he's one of the finest people I've met in Congress. He really is. Just a great person. I want to ask you about the big, beautiful bill. How close are we? I mean, you can cut through it, and you can see through it more than anyone that I know. The Senate, the House is accepting what the Senate given them, but they're very reluctant. What's going on?
Well, look, the House doesn't like the Senate bill. It may cause it to be defeated on the first time up, but I think it'll eventually pass in some form. But the real action then will come in the details of actually framing up the budget and the budget bills and the appropriations bills, because there is a deep divide between the Senate budget reconciliation measure and the House budget bill, and they're not going to square it here in the next couple of days, but they're going to have to get into the detail and work it out over the next couple of months. There are big disagreements between the House and Senate, and it's going to be hard to bridge them, but they've got to.
I hear you. And Saturday, shockingly, President Trump says, "Yeah, we're going to have talks / indirect talks, direct. They're going to be in the same building, separate rooms with Iran." Do you think Iran knows that they have very few options for the first time in 40-plus years?
It's hard to see inside the Ayatollah and his people, but realistically, their options are less, and they know that Trump, the guy who authorized the mission to kill Soleimani for having killed American service members, they know they're dealing with a tough customer. And my only concern is that they have established in the last 4 years a very close relationship with Russia, in which they provide drone technology to the Russians to attack Ukraine, and in return, they get assistance from Russia. So this is a new part of that whole problem. But
right.
If they're being realistic, the Iranians have got to know they've got fewer cards to play, particularly after what Israel has done in the region to basically destroy a great deal of the muscle of their proxies, whether it's the Hezbollah or Hamas or the Houthis. The Iranian allies are being degraded.
And by the way, Trump is going to let Netanyahu do it, and I know it. And I'm sure that's what they discussed more than any trade conversation at the White House. Lastly, Chinese soldiers turning up on the Ukrainian battlefield. Are you kidding me, Karl Rove?
This is very troublesome. We're in a situation we've not been in since 1938, in which there's an active, cooperating axis of enemies to America. And I was talking with a very gifted and long-serving member of our military who told me the first the North Koreans and potentially at that point the Chinese, but just potentially, now it may be reality. He said the reason you want to do that is if you command people in battle, you want them to be bloodied. You want them to have gone through the actual experience of combat. It's one thing to do it on, war games and simulated combat. It's another thing entirely to have your people under fire in actual combat. The people are, walk away with a different attitude and with a greater understanding of what they face. And this is a deliberate attempt by the Chinese to make certain that elements of their military leadership have actual combat experience.
Which they haven't had since, I think, 1979 when they got their butt kicked by Vietnam. Well, it's disturbing, and I think we have to say something publicly. I know you got to pick your moments. I get it. And President's got so many balls in the air, but this is, that's should be intolerable. And there two got captured yesterday, evidently, or we found out about it.
Yeah.
Karl Rove, fascinating time. So grateful for your insight, sir.
Thank you for having me on, and have a good trip to Virginia.
Absolutely. I'm going to Virginia, and I'll be in Texas, Dallas, Texas, on the 23rd of August. Please clear your schedule, Karl.
Actually, I'm going to be out of the state. Otherwise, I would be at the airport to greet you and to convey you to your hotel in a with a cowboy escort.
But it's just not going to happen.
No, I'm sorry, but I'm going to be on vacation. Mrs. Rove has dictated that we will be on vacation at that time.
I'm canceling the event. There's no doubt about it. Karl Rove, thank you so much.
I think May 8th or 9th is the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II. If you had told somebody back then, in 2025, there'd be a nation state calling for the extinction of the Jews, they want a nuclear weapon, and people wonder, what should we do? So 80 years later, here's where we find ourselves. They have enough highly enriched uranium to make 6 bombs, and Katie said something all of us agree with. They will use it. If you're watching TV out there, Iran is very close to assembling 6 nuclear bombs. They will kill Israel. They'll come after us. They'll try to purify Islam.
But right now, there's a window of opportunity to take out Iran once and for all. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, he is also CIA Director, Congressman. He is now in studio. It's now soon to be professor at Columbia. Or have you started already?
I started already.
Wow.
Yes, I'm drawing full combat pay out there. It's
fantastic.
All good. Yeah, exactly.
So you have your own chalkboard and everything? Are you teaching
dry
diplomacy?
erase, Exactly.
Oh, it's dry erase.
Exactly.
I'm way behind the times. So great to see you, Mr. Secretary.
It's great to be with you too, Brian.
First off, can you respond to the senator who's a friend of yours?
Yeah. No, there's no doubt this is a moment. Iran is on the cusp of having not only a nuclear weapon, but a program, right? So multiple capabilities across a broad range of delivery systems. I hope President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu spent time talking about this yesterday.
They had to have. Come on. He hasn't come over for trade.
No, I think that's right. It's also the case that you still have to eliminate Hamas, right? This is a full-on challenge. The president's done good work going after the Houthis. I hope they stay at it. This is a full-spectrum effort to once and for all deny Iran the capacity to inflict harm on America.
They got to do Hamas what they did with Hezbollah, and Joe Biden saying don't hold land, and you better back out, and worry about aid, and you're not getting your 2,000-pound bombs. Those limitations were actually extending the pain in Gaza. Don't you agree?
There's no doubt about it. That restraint that they placed on the Israeli Defense Forces risked those hostages' lives, for one thing, and certainly made Hamas more willing to continue the fight and stay after this. It created enormous risk, and I'm glad that President Trump reversed that and now full-throatedly supporting Israel's efforts to provide security, not only for Israel, but for the people in Gaza, living in Gaza, and the people living in the region more broadly.
General Petraeus said, he goes, I don't know what the Israelis are doing. They're not holding land, and now they got 50. They said that they control 50% of Gaza right now. What Gaza looks like, what the IDF is capable of. What would be the next step for you? Would you be working fervently for a vision for what Gaza would look like once Hamas is neutralized?
Yeah, I think that's the goal. And when I say neutralized, gone. No weapons, no Hamas, not sort of what Hezbollah had, right, where they were part of the government and had weapons, their own army. This has to be a complete demilitarized institution, and there needs to be one organization that has weapons in Gaza, and that's the government that controls it. And then
we just don't know what that looks like.
No, we don't. It's a difficult problem set. I don't have a super good answer for this, but I know this much: it can't be the Palestinian Authority unless it's completely revised to a way that's no longer teaching terrorism and paying to slay Israelis, or and it can't be Hamas. It cannot be anybody connected to the Iranian regime.
17 straight days of bombing the Houthi rebels, and they're going after leaders. Some people say we're not making enough gains there, but the Yemeni government is moving on the Houthi rebels, if we believe reports. Does that show there might be a coordination between the U.S. efforts and the Yemeni government?
It wouldn't surprise me. I don't know. I don't have any insight into that.
Would that be something you would do?
Yeah,
is contact the
absolutely.
Yemeni
Look, yes, absolutely. Though there are folks on the ground there that want outside of the Iranian yoke and just want to live a better life in Yemen. We need to identify them. Some of them are in government. Some of them used to be and got booted out. We need to go find them, touch them, and have them be on our side so that we can get not just in Gaza, but in Syria, where the Assad regime fell, and in Yemen, all these places, governments there that don't have as their primary mission set the destruction of the United States.
We have so much to cover, but we also found an unbelievable amount of chemical weapons. We didn't find, the new government did, that Assad had assembled. This is just Brian Kilmeade's theory. How much you want to bet some of that has a return address to Iraq? I mean, don't you think Baathist to Baathist, they did some deliveries before the invasion?
It could well be. It will be fascinating to see as they unpack what was really there, to see where these came from. That history is deep. I'll bet there is. There certainly ought to be on our part. It would be important to know how those got there. Remember, President Obama let them continue to build out their weapons program. He invited the Russians in to do the inspections. Shock, shock. They didn't find them. Yeah, that worked out really well. And then President Trump, when they used chemical weapons in would have been 2017, struck back and slowed the program down.
There's three main militias, I think, in Iraq, and they're Iranian-backed. And they have indicated through Reuters that they're looking to put down their weapons, judging by the type of muscle that we showed in the region. Your thoughts on that? Is it Kataib, Hezbollah,
Kataib Hezbollah is the primary Iranian-backed militia there, but there are offshoots of that as well. They say they're willing to put down their weapons. I'll believe it when I see it. They'll do it only if they don't have any more money coming from Iran. They have no intention of releasing the. Could happen. They have no intention of releasing the Iraqi government from their control. So it will take a continued effort, continued push to drive Iraq back to a better place as well.
How do you get these talks in Oman that take place Saturday, indirect, direct? It doesn't look like they're direct. It's going to be Witkoff and his counterpart. I'm not sure why Witkoff's doing it, not Rubio, but Witkoff and his counterpart in Oman. Your thoughts?
The Iranians have never lost a negotiation, never won a war. I think the talks are fine. We talked with Chairman Kim. Right, I'm happy to have conversations with our adversaries, but we should be very leery. The Iranians will cheat, lie, steal. There's no doubt that they're entering these negotiations with the goal of riding out the next 3.5 years.
Mike Pompeo, you got that military background, years at West Point. I have not been on the ground in Tehran, but it seems like the Israelis have. What they've been able to do, what they've been able to do with their intelligence, and knowing that, like the 1980s, they will never allow their enemies to get a nuclear weapon. They took them out in Syria. They took it out in Iraq. Now they've gotten rid of the missile defense. There's a window of opportunity. How long do the talks go on, knowing that they're enriching uranium at the rate they're doing it?
It can't go very long, and I think
weeks,
maybe months, but weeks would be better. You heard Prime Minister Netanyahu talk about the negotiations yesterday. He said a deal would be fine, but it's got to be the total, complete devastation, destruction of the Iranian nuclear weapons program. That has to be the objective, singularly, and it can't be fake. It can't be we're going to do inspections with the IAEA. We saw that just led to continued Iranian cheating. I hope President Trump is as determined as he was in the first 4 years to put real pressure on the Iranians to conform.
I think it's going to be Israel that does it. The 2,000-pound bombs, are they the bunker busters needed to penetrate a Iranian program?
You need big stuff.
Is it big? Do you make bigger than that?
You need big stuff, and you need it for a sustained period of time. These are difficult targets, but make no mistake about it. What the Israelis did in taking down the Iranian air defense systems and what they did to convince the Iranian people that Iran can't defend itself, those are the twin pillars of success in changing the nature of the regime in Iran. And if you do that, you can actually get rid of that program for, 15, 20 years.
The Secretary, I was stunned to see 2 captured Chinese fighters yesterday on video in Ukraine. Now, the North Koreans, it was stunning for me to see them 6 months ago, and we heard they've gotten better in real time. They had no idea how to handle drone warfare, let alone fight, because they haven't fought in 60 years. And now we have the Chinese being found on the battlefield. We used to think they wanted to be so coy. Dual-use weapons were once they were trying to deny they were playing help. Now they're putting soldiers in.
Yeah.
What does that tell you?
Yeah, it's very clear. That's pretty brazen to put their own people in. It tells me two things. One is your point about learning is right. I think they want to be on the ground to see what's the latest developments in combat warfare, tactical and operational level. So I wouldn't surprise me if there are even bigger forces there on the ground from the Chinese. And second, it does tell you whether it's Iran or Venezuela or China, these folks are working together against the United States of America, and we need to build out our friends, our partners across the world to confront this combined challenge from all these bad actors.
It's mind-numbing to think they're there, and meanwhile we're in a trade war with them too. So a minute left. We have a situation where we're trying to deal with Vladimir Putin, and he has shown that he cannot be trusted. He doesn't understand that he's got his best opportunity to have an off-ramp now with President Trump. He's embarrassing President Trump if this continues. How long do you think Trump will tolerate this?
There's no doubt Vladimir Putin's going to try and run the string out on this as well, play this for everything he can, get as much land. I don't know how much longer President Trump
will. He's evil, not stupid, right?
He is not stupid. He is evil. He is a bad actor, but he is cunning. And while he screwed up in the invasion, they thought they could roll this thing through. He got that piece strategically wrong. He's still determined to win and prevail. And so he's going to try and drag this out and cut a deal that benefits him and not the United States of America. I don't think President Trump's going to let that happen.
How's he doing? I mean, he's not doing well. I mean, he's losing thousands a week. Is that okay?
Yeah, no, these guys who run these things have a way of surviving an awfully long time, Brian. We think they're going to fall because their people get hacked off. Almost used a bad word. The people get hacked off. That seldom happens. It's going to take even more difficulty. But we have the capacity to put them in a place where we don't have to worry about them invading Europe again. And President Trump did that. He deterred them for 4 years, and then President Biden came in and it all fell away.
Well, you were part of that. And the thing is, we have to continue to supply Ukrainians. Don't you believe that? And that'll also affect the talks.
It's deeply in America's interest to continue to do that, to make sure that the Europeans do it as well. We should absolutely continue to help the Ukrainians defend, and that will give us the leverage at the negotiating table to deter Vladimir Putin.
Have you been accepted at Columbia? Do they feel when you walk around the campus, or people protesting you? What are they doing?
Everybody's been pretty nice so far. So
what about
that's
the
good.
students?
So far, so good. It's been good. Lots of different voices, lots of different opinions, people who disagree with me on lots of things, but the conversation has been civil, and that's what I'd hoped for, and I'm excited about that.
What made you take the job?
I want them to hear a set of different voices, a different viewpoint than they've had on that campus in an awfully long time. And so I got the opportunity to do it, and I'm going to go try my piece.
Does it seem like a institution that's missing $400 million? Do they really want to use that? I mean, they've been denied that by the administration for not fighting anti-Semitism.
I don't know. I haven't really seen that in my little.
That's exactly what they're paying you, though.
Yes, that's exactly right. Dang it. Hope the check clears, Brian.
Mr. Secretary, thanks so much for your quality time.
Thank you.
You helped our audience significantly. We come back. Steve Case, co-founder of AOL and CEO of Revolution. Don't move.
Indeed, new businesses play a significant role in net new job creation, according to data from the National Bureau of Economic Research. Yet entrepreneurs, especially those outside of Silicon Valley and Boston and New York, still face significant challenges in accessing the capital they need to start and scale. In 2017, when Revolution launched our Rise of the Rest seed fund, led at the time by J.D. Vance, who is now our vice president, roughly 75% of venture capital flowed to just 3 states, California, Massachusetts, and New York, with 47 states left to share the remaining 25%.
That was Steve Case, co-founder of AOL and CEO of Revolution. He was speaking in front of Congress a couple of weeks ago, testifying in front of the House Financial Committee about the access to capital, securities reform, and economic growth across the country. But he was there at the beginning of the dot-com boom. It went bust, and now we're in the middle of it. And now we're looking at an AI boom. Will it go bust? And how to navigate it. Let's bring in Steve Case now. He's also on Zoom, so you could watch him here at home. Steve, great to see you. You're not aging. That means there's no stress in your life while changing America and the world. What can we learn from the dot-com boom to keep us from a bust in AI?
Well, I think in retrospect, the dot-com boom was 25 years ago, almost exactly when AOL merged with Time Warner, and a lot of things were happening in the space. And some people decided then that maybe the internet thing was just a passing fad. Obviously, it turned out to be much more fundamental. I think we'll see the same with AI, but certainly there'll be some market corrections. Some valuations will be a little bit off. And what's also different is back then, 25 years ago, most of the big companies, AT&T, General Electric, didn't really believe in the internet, didn't really invest heavily in the internet. Now it's the biggest company, the big tech companies that are really all in. So it doesn't create quite the same opportunity for the startups, and as we saw in the early days of the internet, but there's still a lot of capital, a lot of venture capital flowing to a lot of those AI startups. So I think there are some things that are similar, some things that are different.
Steve, does it blow you away when you look back and think back where we're in, or where we are at now with the internet, to know that you went to these major corporations with the smartest business people in the world and they didn't see the vision or what was ahead?
Oh, yeah. When we started, it was actually AOL. We started 40 years ago in 1985. Back then, only 3% of people were online. Those 3% were online an average of 1 hour a week. And it took us a while to convince even the personal computer manufacturers to build a modem, a communications modem, into their PCs, because they thought it was more of a peripheral device. Most people wouldn't use. Most people didn't believe email or e-commerce would ever take off. So it was a lesson, and it frankly took us a decade before we finally broke through, which is another difference with AI. It took AOL 9 years to get 1 million customers. It took ChatGPT 3 months to get 100 million customers. So you can just see the pace of innovation has really accelerated, in part because the internet now is so broadly deployed. When you launch an app like a ChatGPT, it can get global adoption almost overnight. That was not the case in the early days of the internet. It was much more slow. You had to build the infrastructure, educate people about the reasons to get online. So it was much more of a slog, kind of a 10-year in the making overnight success.
Do you think there's humility now as we go into the AI world, to where you're not quite sure, but you're open to what might be next that maybe didn't exist in the linear world back then?
No, absolutely. The exciting thing about AI is we're starting to see it really impact fundamental aspects of our lives and big industries. So we backed a company in Chicago called Tempest, for example, using AI to more precisely diagnose when you get cancer or other diseases, what treatment you should get. We backed a company in Syracuse, New York, called Hidden Level, using AI to detect drones in the sky, what's safe and allowed, what are things that police and others should be more concerned about. We backed a company in Seattle, Washington, called Carbon Robotics, using AI and lasers and robotics to more precisely weed farms. And so this is not just about AI platforms that people think about in terms of the apps. It's how it impacts farming, how it impacts healthcare, how it impacts safety and defense. That's what we're starting to see. But it is important. It's what I testified in Congress a couple of weeks ago. It does not just be the entrepreneurs in places like Silicon Valley or New York City. How do we back entrepreneurs all across the country, create jobs all across the country, which is what Rise the Rest has been about now for the last decade.
So Tristan Harris from Social Dilemma was on with us, and he said, I wouldn't be so worried about being first. He goes, we were first with the internet, and look at how much damage we did in terms of controlling people online and access to the internet and social media platforms. Are you concerned about being first?
Well, it's AI for me, because I've been around a while. It's sort of interesting. It first came about 70 years ago. Artificial intelligence, AI, first got worked on and even named 70 years ago. So it actually has been building very slowly. It just really took off in terms of consumer adoption in the past couple of years. And I think because of the pace of that adoption, this again is a little bit different than the early days of the internet, because the internet developed so slowly. Policymakers, whether it be here in Washington, D.C. or in Europe or other places, had a kind of hands-off, sort of light touch approach. We don't really understand what's happening here. Let's kind of take let's see how it develops. Now there's more pressure to think about what the regulations are, because of some of the lessons learned with social media and other kinds of things. And because big tech is getting bigger, that also creates some concerns around antitrust. So I think you're seeing, not just in our country, but other countries, more engagement on this. But it's going to be tricky. How do you strike a balance between not over-regulating, which will stifle innovation, but at the same time not kind of having your head in the sand doing nothing? And so figuring out what that right mix is, what sort of the Goldilocks solution is, not too big, not too small, just right, is really tricky. And hopefully we'll figure that out in the next year or two in our country.
25 seconds. Who should be on that board to talk about regulations? I really worry about Congress doing it, because they're not like you. They don't live this every day.
Congress obviously has lots of different issues to deal with, and some of these things are pretty complicated. So having dedicated people who really understand the industry, understand the technology, understand the societal implications is important. There was some bipartisan work in the Senate that I was part of the last couple of years to kind of educate folks in the Senate. I think that's helpful. But obviously the pace of innovation continues to.
Thanks so much, Steve Case.